name is Grace Amadon, and today I am honored to speak with Dr. Chris Bailey. Dr. Bailey is a board certified clinical neuropsychologist and professor of neurology at the Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. He is also the director of the neuropsychology section of the Neurological Institute, director of the University Hospital's Concussion Management Program, and director of the Adult Neuropsychology Postdoctoral Fellowship Program. Dr. Bailey is going to be speaking at the upcoming SNS Symposium, giving a talk titled With a Little Help from My Friends, The Path of a Sports Neuropsychologist from Training to Practice. So, Dr. Bailey, just first of all, thanks so much for being willing to speak with us today.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
So, I'm very excited to hear about your upcoming talk. It starts with a little help from my friends, and sounds like it traces your journey into sports neuropsychology. So, first, just wanted to ask, what drew you to this specialty, and how did your early training experiences shape the path that you took?
So I didn't know it existed yeah, when we first started doing it. So I originally thought I was going to go into forensics. So I thought I was going to do something totally different. And when I interviewed at Penn State, I interviewed with Ruben Echemendia. And he was, telling me about the work that he was doing with athletes and some of the concussion testing programs that he was setting up at that time. And who knew that it was going to be something that would, I would kind of turn into a career, but it was definitely something that as he was talking about, I found to be very interesting. I think about when I'm talking to trainees, the quote of "be curious and not judgmental," which I originally thought was Walt Whitman. I mean, my kids would have said that it was actually Ted Lasso. And then when when I looked into it, it actually is just Ted Lasso. So it's a great philosophy though, so especially for trainees to be thinking about, because I think broad training and broad experiences are very important. So you can think you're going to go in one direction, but then if you actually try other things, you may find that the first thing you want to do really isn't your cup of tea, but that second thing is really what you're going to kind of build a career out of. And I definitely found that to be the case for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love the Ted Lasso quote, obviously, also. Um, as you think about this idea of broad training and figuring out how to test out different pathways, one of the things I find is that students try to figure out how to gain experiences in sports neuropsychology as one of those pillars. And so, what do you think for you were the most important opportunities or people that helped you build some of this expertise early in your career? I know you mentioned Ruben Echmendia previously and others,
Sure.
but anyone
Yeah,
else?
so I mean, so Ruben for sure, and then Pete Arnett also at Penn State were people that I worked with, and again, really helped me to kind of get my feet wet with working with athletes and kind of understanding that that was mostly research at that time. So at Penn State, and so but Penn State being a very good Boulder model, they were kind of the scientist practitioner model of training. The research that we were doing was using the clinical data that we were collecting and helping with decision making process like return to play. And so I was kind of getting used to that experience, and that was really important. But then I connected to sports neuropsychology really in each one of the steps of my training. So I matched at UNC for internship. And while I was there, I worked with Kevin Guskowitz in his lab. At that time he was doing really exciting stuff with accelerometers and in helmets and kind of looking at force and some of the more advanced vestibular, testing and evaluation at that time. And then after internship, I really realized that the neuropsychology space was really kind of really what I wanted to do more so than like the forensic side of things. And so the next logical step was to find people that would kind of continue to kind of build on that kind of broad neuropsychology training, but also kind of work in the sports neuropsychology stuff. And so I ended up going to UVA and working with Jeff Barth and Donna Broshek there, which was really just excellent. So I mean, I've worked with great people. I've been really lucky, ultimately to work with excellent people that really helped me along the way.
Yeah, all of those names are just renowned names in the field. And also, your name is a huge name that I think a lot of trainees look up to. You, as I mentioned in the intro, held a lot of different positions, a lot of different director roles. So, as a leader in national professional organizations and directors of postdoc fellowship programs, how do you find yourself transitioning from clinician to researcher to leader in every aspect of your day to day? And why are each of these roles important for the field?
It's a very kindly worded question. Thank you. Um, so, I feel like that, it's very important to get involved in organizations. It's really, kind of, joining these groups and kind of, that in doing that, you then kind of develop relationships that are going to be things that are going to open doors, and really get you involved. I mean, I don't, any kind of leadership role that I've ever taken on, I mean, they're not necessarily ones that I have put out there, but people have asked, would you be
Sure.
interested in this? And kind of, have some nominated, but other ones just, just kind of tested the waters to see, are you actually interested in kind of doing this kind of work? And that, it was the relationships essentially that I had that allowed me to do that. And so, the way that you kind of build those relationships, some are going to be the people that you're training with, but other ones are going to be just getting involved in groups and organizations. Maybe it's volunteering at a symposium, maybe it's working on a committee, just attending the meetings, getting involved with that. I mean, I feel like that's one of the nice things about the SNS meeting is that it is this intimate meeting
Right.
where you actually do get to meet the people and kind of interact with people. And those kinds of relationships, like I said, are the things that really do later develop into opportunities. And I love taking on all the different hats that I do. It's what makes my day interesting. I don't get bogged down doing the same thing over and over again. I'm doing all these different things. And like I said, I mean, sometimes it feels like drinking from the fire hose a little bit, right? I mean, you're doing a lot of things, but at the same time, it really is, what makes life, interesting. I mean, it really is just I mean, you really need to love the kind of work that you're doing if you're going into neuropsychology. I mean, there's better ways, easier ways to go make money and not have to go through and do all the long training and everything else. So, again, you got to love it. If you don't love the work, that I wouldn't recommend going into this area specifically, because it takes a long time to get there. But what I would say though is that if you do love that work, then again, you want to take on all these different kinds of roles.
Yeah. And something that's important, obviously, I myself am a trainee, so I'm very interested in the path from training to practice. But at SNS, there's a lot of different professionals who attend these types of meetings, things like athletic trainers, physical therapists. There's a huge team at play, particularly with regard to concussion and return to play. So, what do you feel like from your talk that you'll be giving to this wide range of audience here is a single takeaway that you hope multiple streams of providers and professionals and trainees can carry away with from your talk?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's hard to boil things down to one point like that. But I mean, I would say again, relationship is a very important thing, and I think that's true really across specialty. So again, I would say neuropsychology broadly is kind of a small world, but sports neuropsychology and sports medicine period is also not is an especially large space, and so when you kind of develop relationships with people like that across different areas, and like I said, I mean Kevin Guskowitz is an example. He's an athletic trainer, a doctoral level athletic trainer, but is in a different area entirely. But we actually did have interest in kind of working with athletes and working around sports concussion. And I think that, again, that there are many people, working from things maybe in a slightly sort of, different focus. But we all have, the same interest in kind of, working with athlete brain health and keeping people safe, and kind of advancing the science around that in many ways. That I feel like that, again, those relationships are really important to develop. And when you develop them, then they're going to open doors for you now in the kinds of things you're doing, but they're also going to open doors later on in things that you may not even be, aware that you might be interested in doing in someday. And so, I mean, I feel like that again, relationship is a very important thing. It's kind of hard to do that, as a trainee. I feel like to kind of put yourself out there and to interact with people like that, but it really is an important thing, and it has a lot of benefits.
Yeah. Well, that's really great to hear and just inspiring to know as a trainee the paths that we can go down here. Dr. Bailey, thanks again so much for speaking with me and to share this with the rest of the audience. I'm certainly looking forward to learning more about continuing this path to practice at the SNS Symposium that will be held in Cleveland this May. So anyone listening here can read more about the conference and also register to attend on the SNS website at sportsneuropsychologysociety.com. And you can also follow SNS on social media platforms like Facebook and X.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.